Welcome to Queer History with Stephenie, a newsletter covering pop culture news, politics, and the science of storytelling through the lens of a cool trans mom. You know, after this, you may never watch the Oscars the same way again. Picture this. 2016 was the year of the 88th Academy Awards and the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite. Along with a few other unprecedented firsts, Chris Rock hosted the Oscars again, which was a first of its kind. He'd come a long way since his first time hosting in 2005, and he had further still to go before 2022. More importantly, the 88th Academy Awards nominated the first out trans musician for an Academy Award, Mercury Prize-winning musician Anohni, for her song Manta Ray, composed for the climate crisis documentary Racing Extinction. Except instead of inviting Anohni to perform, the Oscars invited Dave Grohl, who wasn't even nominated. Now, I love Dave Grohl, but what the... So join me in promoting Oscars So Cis. 2016 was the same year that intensified the Oscars So White movement. At the time, the movement felt powerful, but in hindsight, it has had demonstrably little effect. More on that later. The lack of progress shouldn't be surprising. If the Academy wasn't willing to champion diversity back then, why would we expect that to change today? On the heels of an award season that Rolling Stone said had been rightfully dominated by stories of omission and institutional injustice, the Academy squandered, quote, a golden opportunity to recognize and champion diversity in the artistic community and allow the world a few minutes to indulge in one of its most mellifluous voices, end quote. So what the hell happened? On January 14, 2016, The Advocate published an article titled Meet the Second Ever Transgender Oscar Nominee, in which they said Haggerty, the lead vocalist of the band Anohni and the Johnsons, created the track Manta Ray for Racing Extinction. Haggerty is credited as the writer of the song's lyrics, with the music by Jay Ralph of Chasing Ice. The documentary follows activists as they try to stem the tide of man-made mass extinction of the world's animals. I always think about those stories about the last bird, or the last of his species when they're calling out and they don't have the other animal, the partner that can call back to them, Haggerty said in an interview with Flavorwire on the state of trans feminism. The idea, quote, of the disappearing voice is very resonant for me. What hears a solitary voice? What responds to a solitary voice? But Taylor and Rodriguez, along with a host of other diverse films and actors, were snubbed in the major Oscar categories, which were announced on that Thursday morning. February 25, 2016, Rolling Stone publishes an article titled Trans Oscar nominee Anohni on why she's boycotting Academy Awards. Quote, on Saturday, it was reported that Anohni was one of two Best Original Song nominees who wasn't invited to perform during the telecast. The other was the duo of David Lang and Sumi Jo, whose simple song number 3 was commissioned for Paolo Sorrentino's Youth. The slight, as per the Academy's usual style of sharing their short-sightedness, was only possible to glean via omission. The news had to be parsed from a press release boasting that nominees Lady Gaga, Sam Smith, and The Weeknd would be singing on air, end quote. The next morning, Anohni observed the Oscars had added her gender to the trivia page of their website, but as of March 12, 2023, that detail appears to have been removed. On her website and Pitchfork, Anohni wrote a heartbreaking essay explaining why, despite being nominated, she chose not to attend the 88th Academy Awards, saying, quote, I am the only out transgendered performer ever to have been nominated for an Academy Award, and for that I thank the artists who nominated me. There was a trans songwriter nominee named Angela Morley in the early 70s who did some great work behind the scenes. I was in Asia when I found out the news. I rushed home to prepare something in case the music nominees would be asked to perform. Everyone was calling with excited congratulations. A week later, Sam Smith, Lady Gaga, and The Weeknd were rolled out as the evening's entertainment, with more performers soon to be announced. Confused, I sat and waited. Would someone be in touch? But as time bore on, I heard nothing. Saying, I have decided not to attend the Academy Awards this election year. I will not be lulled into submission with a few more well-manufactured, feel-good ballads and a bit of good old-fashioned T&A. They are going to try to convince us that they have our best interests at heart by waving flags for identity politics and fake moral issues. But don't forget that many of these celebrities are the trophies of billionaire corporations whose only intention it is to manipulate you into giving them your consent and the last of your money. On February 25, 2016, The Hollywood Reporter published an article titled Transgender Nominee Anohni Pens Essay on Why She's Boycotting the Ceremony, saying, everyone told me that I still ought to attend, that a walk down the red carpet would still be very good for my career, Anohni continued, saying, last night I tried to force myself to get on the plane to fly to LA for all the nominee events, but the feelings of embarrassment and anger knocked me back, and I couldn't get on the plane. I imagined how it would feel for me to sit amongst all those Hollywood stars, some of the brave ones approaching me with sad faces and condolences. There I was, feeling a sting of shame that reminded me of America's earliest affirmations of my inadequacy as a trans person. I turned around at the airport and went back home. I will not be lulled into submission with a few more well-manufactured feel-good ballads and a bit of good old-fashioned TNA. This represents a series of events that occur over years to create a system that has sought to undermine me, at first as a feminist child, and later as an androgynous trans woman. It is a system of social oppression and diminished opportunities for trans people that has been employed by capitalism in the U.S. to crush our dreams and our collective spirits. What did Anohni's song compete against? In the category of Best Original Song, the track Manta Ray from Racing Extinction competed against Simple Song No. 3 from Youth, earned it from 50 Shades of Grey, Till It Happens to You, a song about sexual abuse created by Diane Warren and bisexual artist Lady Gaga for The Hunting Ground, and Writings on the Wall from Spectre, co-composed by Sam Smith. The winner was Writing on the Wall from Spectre, with music and lyric by Jimmy Napes and non-binary sensation Sam Smith. Sam also recently won a Grammy for the song Unholy with trans singer Kim Petras by their side. Is Sam winning in 2016 enough to save the Academy from Oscars so cis? Depends. Who else did the Oscars snub in 2016? On February 29, 2016, All Is Yar published an article titled The Oscar Moment That Didn't Happen for soprano Sumi Jo and composer David Lang, saying, if you watched the 88th Academy Awards last night, you may have noticed that only 3 of the 5 songs nominated in the Best Original Song category were performed during the ceremony. While this isn't the first time this has happened, it certainly goes against tradition. More notably for classical music fans, one of the songs not performed was Simple Song No. 3 from the movie Youth, composed by David Lang and sung by coloratura soprano Sumi Jo. The official reason for the omission, as Variety reported last week, was quote, unquote, time constraints. All Is Yar went on to say, in my humble opinion, that's bullshit, cough cough. I'm guessing it had more to do with the genre of the song and the lack of popularity of the principals. If the 2 songs left out of the show were instead performed by Rihanna and One Direction, you could bet your golden statuette that time would have magically been found. What did the voices of the 2016 Academy Awards urge the voices of today to remember? President Barack Obama said, quote, I think when everybody's story is told, then that makes for better art. That makes for better entertainment. It makes everybody feel part of one American family. So I think as a whole, the industry should do what every other industry should do, which is to look for talent, provide opportunity to everybody. Best Supporting Actress winner Lupita Nyong'o said, I am, quote, disappointed by the lack of inclusion in this year's Academy Awards nomination. It has me thinking about unconscious prejudice and what merits prestige in our culture. She concluded by saying, I stand with my peers who are calling for change and expanding the stories that are told in recognition of the people who tell them. So it's 2024. How much have the Oscars improved since 2016 and Oscars So White? March 1st, 2023, Rolling Stone published an article titled, Oscars Still #So White, Despite Some Improvements in Nominee Diversity, saying, quote, the gains for Best Director and Adapted Screenplay are largely due to the substantial increase in underrepresented men rather than underrepresented women. The category that comes closest to that threshold is Best Original Song, with underrepresented nominees comprising 37% of the category. Women of color represent just 2% of total nominees. 20% of all black nominees have been in Best Original Song category. Only 8 women have been nominated for Best Director. 4 of those nominations came after 2017, and only 3 women have won. 9% of all Asian Oscar nominees were nominated in 2022, with the vast majority of them associated with Everything Everywhere All at Once. To boot, nearly a quarter of all Asian Oscar winners were crowned in 2020 and 2021. The study did not look at other historically marginalized communities that fall under the Oscars So White umbrella, such as LGBTQIA+ people and people with disabilities. In closing, #Oscars So Cis. On January 14, 2016, The Advocate published Meet the Second Ever Transgender Oscar Nominee, saying the lack of diversity is sending a clear message to a majority of the audience that you too don't deserve to be recognized. In a recent interview with The Advocate, Taylor, who along with Taylor was among the LGBT magazine's 40 Under 40 list, expressed that an Oscar nomination would have been a great deal for transgender people. It would not only increase visibility of the community and its struggles, she expressed, but such an honor would also send an important message. If I can make it, then you can make it. Nominating and yet omitting Anohni from the invited performers in 2016 highlights the need for an inclusive tag, a tag that honors not just cisgender diversity, but all of the diversity that comes from the gender nonconforming people who continue to be invisible to the Academy Awards. Hear my cry. Oscars, so cis.